Hey, what's up you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Chemical Guys Detail Garage. Today we are going over improper ceramic coating applications. Now, mistakes happen, in this car right here, this BMW, this car was just professionally ceramic coated, but even the pros make mistakes, and you guys will see right here. Now, this specific section on the trunk was coated. However, it looks like to me that the people that did this did not properly remove the coating once they were done applying it. Now you guys can check it out up close. You'll see that it has this kind of rainbowy kind of effect. Now I do have the surrounding areas already masked off just to kind of save some time, because in order to remove something like this, we're gonna have to polish it out. Now to show you guys, I'm gonna start off this process by wiping it down with some wipeout. Whenever you're faced with something like this, you want to make sure that you do it the correct way the first time around, because if not, then you're going to be left with something that looks like this. So I'm going to show you guys right now with some wipeout. I'm going to spray directly onto the surface. And wipeout is a surface cleanser. So this is going to remove any kind of oils, waxes, sealants that are sitting on the surface. However, in this case, it's not really going to do so much as far as removing the ceramic coating, because this is a professional 9H ceramic coating. So what this does is it hardens on the surface. So as you can imagine, if you apply it and you let it just sit on there, it's going to harden on your paint and it's going to be pretty difficult to take off. And in this case, you're actually not even going to be able to wipe it off in that matter. But the reason that I wiped it down in the first place was simply to show you guys that this stuff is not going anywhere. So you guys will see that the coating, it's still fully intact in there. I'm trying to buff it off, but you'll see right here, you'll see more of a kind of rainbow hazy kind of look. Now if you guys see up close, you'll see that the ceramic coating is still fully intact. So whenever they applied it to this section, they didn't wipe it off, it hardened and it stayed on there, and now that's the final result. Now, in order to remove something like this, we're gonna have to most likely, more often than not, polish it out. So in this case, I'm gonna grab my Torque R rotary polisher and I'm gonna grab a light cutting measure first. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a white pad and I'm gonna try out some P4 Precision Paint Perfection polish, and hopefully we can knock this off with a simple one-step polishing solution. All right guys, so right here I have my Torque R, which is a rotary polisher paired with a 3-inch backing plate, and I also have a 4-inch Hexagic white polishing pad. Now, whenever you polish, you want to make sure to use the least aggressive approach as possible. Reason for it is because you don't want to have to cut any more excess clear coat than you should. Now with a product like Carbon Force, it does harden on the surface of your paint, then it does kind of act like a secondary layer of clear coat on top of your paint. So it offers you the extreme shine and the extreme durability of protection. Now right here, I'm going to be hoping to remove it with some P4 Precision Paint Perfection polish. Now this is simply because I want to do the least amount of work as possible, because I want this to be a quick and easy application. So once I have that down, I'm going to grab some polishing pad conditioner and I'm simply going to spray about 2 light sprays onto my pad already with the product. And now I'm going to blot it out on the section. Now if you guys will see, this right side, it's not too bad, and this left side is pretty much where it has it the worst. Also, for you guys wondering about the clay bar process, this right here, it's very smooth. This literally was just done, I believe it happened on Friday, he mentioned. Happened on Friday, just a couple of days later, and this is pretty much the result. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and hop into the polishing process. So I'm gonna do the same thing here and blot it out on this little section that I'm gonna be working it in. And as I mentioned to you guys already, I have already masked off the surrounding areas just to make sure that we're just polishing the paint. And now that I have that set up, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my machine polisher to a low speed setting, and then I'm gonna go ahead and work in this product. All right, so now that I have spread out my product nice and evenly in the section that I'm going to be using it in, now I'm going to go ahead and turn it on to a higher speed setting, work it in, and then I'm going to buff it off and show you guys the results. All right guys, so now that I'm done working in the product, I'm gonna grab a microfiber towel and wipe it off. So I'm gonna buff off the remaining residue of the P4 polish. Now, I did P4 to start off this process just to make sure that if we can go ahead and knock this off with the finer polish, then, so be it. If we don't have to go ahead and go with the more aggressive compound, that's great, because then we won't have to come back with the more aggressive pad, a more aggressive compound in order to remove this. And just from this little section so far, I'm gonna say it looks pretty great. However, there are some areas that I feel like it still can do a little bit of work with. So what I'm gonna do right now, since I don't think that it's gonna need a more aggressive compound, I'm simply gonna just follow it up with the secondary pass of P4 to remove this. Now, if you go ahead and you do this process, and depending on how long that professional grade coating has been sitting on there for, if this has been like weeks or months that it's been sitting on there, then you may have to go with something more aggressive like a compound. The longer that the product sits on there, the more it's gonna harden and the more it's gonna be tough to remove. Now, since this section is pretty much about 80% done, what I'm gonna do right now is actually just grab 2 more drops of P4, continue doing this little section, and then I'm gonna double check my results and then be back with you guys to hopefully be done with this process, and then we can move on to doing the rest of the trunk. All right, guys, so now that I'm buffing off this layer of P4 after the second pass, I can go ahead and tell you guys that this thing is absolutely removed. It looks great, and you can also see that this also removed any kind of fine scratches underneath that were in that coating that, maybe the installer didn't actually finish removing. Whenever you apply a ceramic coating, you do want to make sure that your paint is near perfect, or as good as you want to preserve it in. So these ceramic coatings, they're intended to preserve the overall look of your paint. So if there's any kind of scratches and swirls in your paint before you apply the coating, then you're going to lock in those scratches and swirls, and you don't want that to happen. So with this little combination that we just done on here, we removed the coating that was sitting on the surface and any kind of fine light scratches that were underneath. So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish off the rest of the trunk, because as you guys can see right here, underneath the license plate, they didn't take the time to polish this section out. And you can also see that there's more ceramic coating that's left over right here. So we wanna make sure that this trunk is as precise as possible before we get on to the next step, which is reapplying the ceramic coating. So stay tuned, you don't wanna miss out. All right, guys, so before we move on to the next step, I want to share something with you guys that maybe or maybe not, a lot of you guys might know. Now, before you move on to actually applying the coating itself, after you're done polishing, you want to wipe it down with some Wipeout. Now, Wipeout is a surface cleanser. So what this does is it removes any kind of previous coats of waxes, sealants, oils, residual compound, and polish residue on the surface. Now, in this case, we're good because P4 is actually a water-based product, does not have any oils that are pretty much interfering with our results. So the results that you guys see right here are the actual results that we got. Now, if you're using a product that has fillers, then this is gonna pretty much remove them and allow you to see the paint for what it is itself. However, in this case, I'm using it to prepare the surface so that there's absolutely nothing on there that's gonna interfere with my bond of carbon force. So with this right here, it's super easy to use. You should be using this every time you apply a wax or even like a sealant on your car. Just simply spray your towel. I like to spray the towel directly just because I don't like the product to get into like the trim and like my masking tape, because then I'm gonna have like water leaking, and the last thing I wanna do, or the last thing I want happen, is me apply my carbon force and then I get like a drip of water here. So make sure to spray the towel directly, or if you want, spray the product onto the vehicle itself. However you like to do it, I just give it a light little wipe down, and you can pretty much just utilize this product just like a quick detail spray. So just wiping down the area. As you guys can see, it doesn't leave any kind of shine behind. It actually just removes any kind of residual that may be sitting on the surface that before we apply our coating. Super easy. Buff it off to your dry side of your microfiber towel. Buff off any excess product, and you're all ready to start coating. All right, guys, so now for the main event, which is applying our carbon force ceramic coating. So now that we've just pretty much polished out the remaining coating that was sitting on the surface, this paint is absolutely bare. So now we want to protect it. So even though the people that did install the ceramic coating applied it, it's not technically there anymore because we polished it out. So now what I'm going to do is apply some carbon force. Now we have our micro suede applicators that come with your bottle of carbon force. Now with this product, all you have to do is pretty much get your applicator, flip it around like so, and then you're going to flip your bottle, and you're pretty much just going to apply a light line of product, flip it back around, and then you do want to make sure to put your cap back on, because the last thing that you want to happen is, you set this down on the table, you set it down on the ground, it tips over, and your bottle of carbon force is ceramic coating your cement as opposed to your beautiful ride. So now that we have that going on our applicator, all we got to do is apply it. And the cool thing about this product is that it's super easy to apply. All you have to do is apply it in straight motions. You don't have to do any kind of circular motions. In this case, since we want a nice uniform coat, we're going to apply this in a nice crosshatch motion. So I'm just going left and right. I am overlapping my product about 75%. And then if you really have to, you can come back and do an up and down. Same thing, overlapping 75%. Now, since this trunk is pretty small, and I just did this little section in like, 10 seconds, I'm actually just gonna do the rest of the trunk all in one go, just so that I can have a nice even coat on this trunk right here. So for that reason, installers can charge you thousands of dollars just to get this process done in your vehicle. And check it out, you guys. I'm showing you guys how right now, and you guys can actually pick up all these products right now on our website, chemicalguys.com, or you can swing by your local detail garage store to pick them up. And as you guys can see, it's a super easy process. I'm just gonna come back right here just to make sure that everything is nice and even. Now with the product like carbon force, you don't have to let it sit for long. Now the reason I'm coming back is just to ensure that everything has a nice even coat. And with this product, you don't have to let it sit for half an hour or anything like that. This product, since it does harden on the surface, you wanna go ahead and buff this off in as little as 30 seconds up to 2 minutes. Now, reason for it is because in those 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on the environment that you're in, this process for the product to flash can take anywhere from that time frame. So now that the product has been sitting there, I'm just gonna let that sit for about maybe a minute or more so, just to make sure that it bonds to the surface of the paint before I buff it off with my microfiber towel. So it's been about almost 45 seconds or so. So now what I'm gonna do is just simply buff off the product. And as you guys can see, I am buffing it off, unlike the last people that applied this product onto the vehicle. You do want to make sure that you remove the entirety of the product from the surface, because remember, carbon force does harden, so you don't want it to harden on your paint. So if you have any remaining product that's sitting on the surface, well, it's not going to wash off on your next wash. It's actually going to harden. So in order for you to have the smoothest application possible and the best results possible, you do want to make sure that you completely wipe it off. And I would highly encourage that you guys come back and give the area a double, triple, quadruple wipe, just to ensure that there's absolutely nothing on the surface. And for this, you don't need any kind of fancy towels. Personally, I like using these workhorse towels. I find that they work great to pretty much buff off this product without any kind of residue left behind. So it picks up all the product very nicely, very evenly. We don't have to worry about any kind of high spots or anything like that, because this product is just gonna soak up any remaining residue of the coating. All right, guys, and there you guys have it. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward, pretty amazing results. What do you guys think? Now, if you guys ever have a problem with ceramic coating, just simple, straightforward thinking, try your best to just simply wipe it off with a detail spray. If that doesn't work, try polishing it out. 9 times out of 10, that's gonna work. And like I mentioned, for that time that it's been sitting there for a little bit longer than just a few days or a couple weeks, you may want to go ahead and use a more aggressive compound in order to remove the more hardened layer of ceramic that is on your vehicle. So I'm gonna leave it off there. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give this video a like. If you guys want to learn more about these products, make sure to check out our wide library of YouTube videos, and so you can learn more about carbon force and how to apply it. And if you guys want to stay tuned for our newest videos, make sure you click that subscribe button right now so that you don't miss out on any of our future content. My name is Joey. This is Chemical Guys Detail Garage. I'll see you guys next time.